All right, Kendall back here with our injury process and a quick review. Remember, we had our same graph here. This is the 3 phases of healing: our acute inflammation, proliferation, on into maturation. And what I want to do in this video is I want to bring about the idea of interventions. Interventions, that's what you do as a caretaker for an athlete or yourself when an injury happens. And so we're going to start with the base idea of what do you do first. Well, you have probably heard this term before, and if not, don't worry about it. I'm going to teach it to you now, and that is RICE. We always want to encourage you to RICE an injury. Now, RICE doesn't mean like you literally go to the supermarket and you buy rice and you stick it on there. This is an acronym. It stands for rest, ice, compression, elevation. Rest is important. Why is it important? Because look up here and let's remember what happened in acute inflammation. Remember, this is where we had pain, we had swelling, and we had vasodilation, right? And even more importantly, we had granulation tissue. So rest is important so that we can reduce pain, we can reduce swelling, we can let vasodilation happen and not aggravate it too much, and we can protect granulation. This is crucial because if we do not protect granulation, we will start back at the onset timeline of which we began in the first place. So we have to protect granulation. First step in doing that is rest. Many times you will see this acronym written with a P in front of it stating price. What that P means is protection. And that may mean that you are putting that person in a splint or a sling or a boot or a brace or on crutches, and that is the way we will protect a person. Rest is crucial, though, for the area that was injured. Let's go on to the I. The I stands for ice. Now, I know that many of you, and this is not to say that you didn't know better, but many of you have probably hurt your back, and you probably visited your grandmother and got her heating pad, and you took it home and you laid on it for hours at a time. This could be no better for you than if you were to go and lay in the middle of the road and hope a car ran over you and killed you, because it's not doing what we want it to do. What I want to see happen is I want to see a patient who comes in who has pain, swelling, and vasodilation, and I want to affect the physiology in a way that will promote healing. And so what can we do there? Well, the I is for ice. Ice is cold. People don't like cold, especially during the midst of basketball season when it's February and they turn their ankle. They say, why would you want to put ice on me? It's already cold outside. Well, we want to put ice on you because, again, we want to affect pain, swelling, and vasodilation. How do we do that? Ice goes on and immediately begins to decrease pain because it is cold, and it desensitizes those nerves. And the nerves are being affected by swelling. And so what we know from evidence brought forth from several studies is that if you take ice and you put it on an area, what it will do is it will cause vasoconstriction, which is the opposite of vasodilation. And if we see vasoconstriction, and in honesty, it's probably only going to constrict down to, closer to normal levels, but that's going to reduce the amount of blood going into an area. If you reduce the amount of blood going into an area, you're going to reduce the amount of swelling. If you reduce the amount of swelling, you're going to reduce the amount of physical compression on nerves that are causing pain in the first place. And so you're going to see a resultant pain relief. Many of you have iced injuries before, and you can attest that the pain did decrease and it actually gets numb. So what we see is ice coming in, causing a decrease in pain, swelling, and vasodilation. Now, does that mean that you're going to get through acute inflammation any faster? Probably not. Your body's only going to heal as fast as it's going to heal. What we're trying to do is we're trying to decrease the discomfort that's brought upon by this injury. These normal physiological processes are going to have to occur. So, that being said, we need to move forward knowing that, yes, we can affect pain but we probably still will need to let the process occur. Now, ice happens, and then we have this C. C stands for compression and is the most important aspect in my mind in controlling this whole process. And when I say controlling, I'm using that term lightly because we really can't control it a lot. Our bodies are going to do what they need to do to get healed. But if we put compression into the treatment protocol, what we find is that we have mechanically reduced the space that swelling has to fill. And so if you have a smaller bucket, then you can only fill so much volume. And so what we're doing is we're mechanically limiting how much swelling can affect a joint, especially a distal joint like a knee or an ankle or a foot. So what we do is we apply something like an ACE bandage or maybe a compression sock or a compression hose to reduce the amount of swelling that's going to be able to go in there. Now, one other thing that I have found reported, and this is more anecdotally reported, but compression feels good on an injured area. It supports it. It gives it the protection and many times allows us to do the rest. And so the compression really is one of the most critical components in my mind that we can put towards the acute treatment and intervention of an injury. Last thing on our list is elevation. Now, I want you to think about how many people you've seen, especially and I'm going to pick on basketball and football for this, but how many people have you seen sprain an ankle and they go and they lay down on the ground and maybe the coach or a student aide or someone brings over the Gatorade bucket that they're drinking out of and they lay it there beside them and they have to stick their foot in. Off of a table or something down into this bucket of ice water. Well, let me just kind of tell you that if you stick your foot down into ice water, what you are doing is you're ignoring this whole concept, because elevation is pretty much a critical component in the Price method. And if you stick your foot down into ice, you're not getting elevation. In fact, you're only doing the opposite, and that's letting gravity really pull on the blood that's pumping from the heart from vasodilation and letting swelling happen more. So you don't want to do that. What do you want to do? You want to protect it, rest it, ice it, compress it, elevate it? Well, make sure you elevate it. You can't possibly elevate your leg and put it in a bucket of water. It just doesn't work. So you also have ignored the compression component because you're not mechanically limiting the space. So what does that look like? Well, that really means that you are letting that swelling come on down through gravity, giving it all the space it wants. You are icing it, which reduces the temperature, but there's a unique theory out of physics that teaches us that there's a thermal pane. And so if you stuff your leg into ice cold water, there's going to be a barrier form because there's no convection to move the water around. And therefore that water just around that area will warm too, because heat always wins. So there is the fundamentals of why we use ice and cold and elevation and compression. Now let me just make one more statement, and that is this. When you use Price, how long do you want to use it and how often do you want to use it? Well, it's not really a good idea to stick someone on an ice bag and leave them on an ice bag all day long. What we recommend is that you ice every 2 hours for 15 minutes at a time. Now, with that, you need to understand, and there's a video that will supplement this, how to put an ice bag on with compression and elevation. So go on down, view that video, take a look at that as well. After you finish, go to the student summary, let me know what you think. Let's talk about the 3 components of healing or phases of healing. Let's talk about Price, and let's talk about how to actually put a person on ice and make it as comfortable for them as we can. If you have any questions, please let me know. Looking forward to the next chapter. See you soon.